Welcome to Things My Mother Forgot to Mention.
The podcast where we say everything our mothers didn't.
I'm Jan, a trauma therapist and author turned rogue storyteller, here to talk openly about the body, aging, and all the, wait, what? Moments of womanhood.
And I'm Patty, an online business and tech nerd whose purpose is to elevate the voices of women in our world and who doesn't believe in taboo topics. Things My Mother Forgot to Mention is the podcast for every woman who's ever said, wait, why didn't anyone mention this to me?
Join Jan and Patty, two outspoken, curious, outrageous women, as they dive headfirst into a messy, magical, and often WTF realities of aging, health, and quite simply being a woman.
From rogue chin hairs and vaginal thinning
to mental health, perimenopause, and scalp cancer. Yes, really.
Nothing is off limits. It's funny, it's raw, it's real talk your mother definitely skipped.
Let's get into it.
Hello, Jan.
Hey there, Patty. How you doing today?
Good. I'm all right. Hanging in there. How about you?
It's kind of a busy month and it just seems like a lot of stuff is happening, but I'm hanging in there, and I know that today we're going to talk about menopause, and I was thinking back to when we were talking about perimenopause.
Yeah.
And we had talked about some of the symptoms, and I talked about my symptoms of what I was going through, and you said you were having some perimenopause symptoms,
Yeah.
and wondering. And some women have them, and some women just don't. It's just how it is. And I think the most important thing I want to say as we talk about menopause is that I'm not a medical doctor. I'm only talking from my own experience.
Right.
And we do have a resource sheet that I was working on that would be helpful for women listening to this episode. So
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
kind of wanted to put that out there first.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always have resource pages on the website, and we put the resources in the show notes and things. So yeah, I think it's good. And you and I were talking a little bit as we were getting started here that like my mom didn't really have much as far as menopause goes. I know that she said it was because of stress, but who knows that she went into early menopause.
Okay.
She was saying in her early 40s she was in menopause, which is really early
Wow,
because
that
the
is
av
early.
the average age is like in 52 is the average
52.
age.
Yep.
And
Number.
so yeah, so for her to be in menopause in her 40s is super young, but she really
Mhm.
didn't even have not much of anything. Like she doesn't
Mhm.
say she maybe had a couple hot flashes, but really is very, very
That was
minimal
it.
for her. Yeah. And so many people like you have had some pretty
Yes.
intense menopause. So I'm hoping that I get whatever genes that is. Like
You get your mother's genes, and that'll be
just
good.
for that, that would be great, you know? If we
Good
could
for you.
select the things we get from our parents, I'd like
I
some of
wish.
that, please. I'll
Wouldn't, oh,
take the
wouldn't that be great if we could
easy
do that?
menopause.
When you're in utero, you can say,
Yeah,
okay, I
good
don't want
teeth.
that, but I want that.
Yeah, no, thank
Well,
you, anxiety. Nope, nope.
anyway,
Yep.
but what I was thinking about my own mother, like what she never mentioned. My mom actually did mention quite a few things about it because she had gone on some bioidentical hormones because they had put her on Premarin, which
Right.
is from a pregnant horse's urine.
Hmm.
And it's way over. It's too much for the human body, our bodies, because
Right.
it's not bioidentical. It's just too strong. But she
Yeah.
was on that, and then she got off of that, and I remember her talking about it. And let's see, I must have been in my 20s, late 20s or 30s, early 30s when she was doing all that. And so, one thing I wanted to just mention before we really get into this is that the field of menopause and studying that and really having resources for women in the last probably 20 years has really skyrocketed, which is
Mm,
same thing in psychotherapy.
yeah.
The field of mental health and treatment has changed so much in the last 20 years, which is the good news.
Yeah.
And what I was just looking at the history that the what they call it now for menopause and all the symptoms of it and issues that women have is called GSM. And that
Mm.
term I just found out because it used to be called atrophic vaginitis. And it
Okay.
sounded like it was, anything with itis
Right.
usually means it's some kind of infection,
Right.
like
Atrophic
arthritis.
sounds like atrophy,
Yeah,
right?
well,
Like,
that is the word, atrophic vaginitis. And so what they were saying is that it's not just about the vagina. It's
mm,
really about the vulva, the vagina, the bladder, the urethra, sexual and urinary function. It's not just the vagina. And that's what's so
yeah.
interesting. That's why they call it GSM, and that came in
Ah.
2015 is when they called it that.
So,
Yes.
so technically, like what you're saying is instead of like medically speaking, instead of calling it just menopause, that's the actual like technical term for
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Oh, that's fascinating. And what's interesting too is like growing up and just in general, like you hear people talk about menopause and you're like, oh, it's hot flashes and mood swings. And it's like, but what I've been learning by through these podcasts and talking with you and stuff is that there's so much more
More.
than than just that. Like they chalk it up to like people kind of almost just wave it off like, it's menopause, hot flashes and like, but it is woof, like it's not something I'm looking
Yeah,
forward
it's
to. I'll
still
tell you
called
that.
menopause, but it looks like here the study of women's sexual health
Mm,
and the Menopause Society uh, had a conference and they said that GSM, Genitourinary Syndrome of Menopause, is what that GSM
mm,
stands for.
okay.
The new umbrella term that
Right.
really takes the whole package here rather than just the vagina.
Right.
Everybody's thinking, oh,
Right.
it's just you stop your period and your vagina dries up and it becomes, atrophied.
Right.
And so, really, but what this is really saying, I was just thinking how great that is. 2015. So that's like in the last 10 years that's changed, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly
even
10
before
years.
that, coming up with some of these solutions for women, just like, of course, they came up with men's solutions for them having issues being able to have, an erection, and they've got all kinds of drugs for them.
Yeah.
But now the women's part now finally is doing something to catch up.
Right. Fancy that.
Fancy that because I was thinking in my mom's experience, and she was doing bioidentical hormones and felt like it was working, but she never really said much else beyond that. But
Mm,
for I was just looking at the list here of the estrogen. Now, one thing I was thinking about, I was thinking, what is the term for estrogen? Estrogen for me is like the hormone of the goddess. Because estrogen is what keeps us
mm,
young. It keeps our skin
yeah.
tight. It keeps
Yeah.
everything plump. It keeps
Hmm.
everything alive. And that's why I was thinking it's like the hormone of the goddess. And what happens in menopause is that it starts to dry up and the ovaries shut down. And that's why women who have, they take their ovaries and their uterus, if they have a full
Right.
hysterectomy, they take the
Hmm.
ovaries, they're going to go into like this, horrible experience of not having estrogen and everything kind of dries up.
Right.
And so where estrogen is created, then you'll love this one. It's stored in your fat cells. The
Right.
ovaries no longer are functioning. So I was thinking about that and I thought, yeah, that's why women usually you see once they go through menopause get that kind of like weight around the
Oh,
middle.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's almost automatic. You can see that. And so, like I said, the hormone of the goddess is gone. That's why they call it vaginal atrophy. Everything kind of dries up and gets
Yeah.
really tight. So let's see, I was just looking, it's a loss of estrogen. So the tissue thins. And I was
Hmm.
thinking, now for me, I was thinking what happened for me, and I'm finding out is reduced blood flow. So, and that's what's happening to me now, is that I'm realizing that, I had some of the symptoms of, the vaginal dryness, reduced blood flow, muscle weakness and atrophy. And that's what I'm saying. It affects your muscles, it affects everything. Nerve sensation changes. and a lot of urinary incontinence. You hear about older women
Yeah.
many times who
Mm.
have had gone through menopause, always having UTIs. Yeah,
Oh yeah, my
I'm
mother
sure.
gets UTIs a lot.
Yes. And so
Hmm.
that's very common in women in their 60s or 70s or 80s. Pelvic organ prolapse. So I've been going to this urogynecologist, and his specialty is urinary issues, and he's a gynecologist, and he does things like, so when organ prolapse, you've heard of that, where sometimes the bladder or the uterus actually drop into the vagina.
Oh,
You know
right.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard about from you. I heard that. Yeah.
Yes. And so what happens is some women end up having to get the mesh. You've heard there was a big lawsuit, I think I was thinking it was years ago, about the mesh that they put in to pull everything up so that, it's not collapsed in the vagina.
Goodness.
And now I was talking to my pelvic floor therapist, and she said that they've really improved them and they're sized now and that they really work well for women because of going through menopause, and their whole out of the bladder or the vagina, just they drop, the uterus drops in. Can you imagine that?
Just like, I mean, it's so not fair that
It's true.
men,
Who
I
designed
mean,
this?
you'd think that spending our lives bleeding out once a month and children and hormones and all the things that at least when we get older, we get a break. But no, no, our
No,
organs
no, we
fall
don't get it
into
right.
each other and just
Right.
drop down and we
The
have to hold
estrogen
them.
gets taken away,
Yeah, we have
and
to hold it
and
together with mesh. Like,
right, and to hold those organs together as mesh now. The opposite of that is what I've been struggling with, which
hmm
is the pelvic floor is too tight. So
mm,
when they always
good.
say to women after they have babies to do Kegel exercises,
Yeah,
Kegel exercises strengthen those muscles.
right.
And we have a lot of muscles,
Lot.
more muscles that go into the pelvic floor. And so mine have been too tight, which is
Mm,
unbelievable. I was thinking, you got to be kidding me. So besides having issues with, like having UTIs and having, bladder infections and, well, the same thing, and having, like dryness, vaginal atrophy, and then you have, oh, now, hey, let me give you something else. It's too tight, and your pelvic floor is the muscles are so tight that they're cutting off the blood circulation of my bladder, and that's what's been burning. Can you believe that?
oh, so yeah, because I was gonna ask, so what is it? So like we know when they're not strong enough or tight enough. So when they're too tight, it's does it cause pain as well because they're so
Yes.
intense? And
Yes.
then it's cutting off blood that or yeah, wow, or
The
circulation, yeah, same
circulation.
thing, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Um,
some of
wow.
the things that have been recommended, which are so amazing to me, I'm thinking, wow, the world is 2025, is they use cortisone and they put it in the muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Oof.
the muscle, I can tell you what it's called. It's called an obturator internist muscle. We have two of them that come into the pelvic floor.
Okay.
And you can even look at Chat GPT will do a diagram for you. Great. And so you can use cortisone to the inflammation. And there's another thing that's been prescribed for me, which is gabapentin. You know what gabapentin is?
Oh,
Okay,
I
so
do. Yeah, my mom's allergic to it, so I know it. Yeah.
it's for pain, muscle pain, and
Mm-hmm.
for it's before you get into doing like opioids.
Yeah.
But it's done in an insert. It's not done orally. Can you believe that?
Oh, okay. So it's a suppository.
Yeah. Yep.
Hmm.
Yep. Because it gets right to the musculature inside of the vagina. Isn't that amazing? I tell
Wow.
you, I was, so I've learned so much from this urogynecologist. And of course, it's been a battle because, when you are diagnosed with GSM, like I said, it's there's so much they have to test.
Right.
Is it IC, interstitial cystitis, which is a death knell if you get diagnosed with that, because then you have to change your eating and you can't have coffee and you can't have alcohol and you can't eat acidic things.
Hmm. Oh, wow.
Thank God I thought it was that at one point, and he said no, the doctor said no, you don't have that. But it's also like many women get it. It starts out with vaginal dryness and painful intercourse
Hmm.
because of the atrophy that happens, the estrogen atrophy, they call it.
Right,
And so there's many things you can do for that. There's estrogen in a tube where you can insert some of it as a cream. You
right.
can do Vagifem, which is a pill. It's a low dose of estrogen. You can do an estring, they call it, and you can put that in for 3 months, and that works. And that really delivers enough of a low dose of estrogen in the vagina that keeps it plump, that
Huh.
keeps it so it doesn't feel like it's burning and like knives if you're having sex because it's so painful.
Wow. Wow.
So that remember that in case that ever happens to you.
Yeah.
But those are easy things.
Oh my
Just
gosh.
those are easy things. It's the collapse and dropping anything from, like I said, a bladder or a uterus
Yeah.
into the vagina. And it's also these two tight muscles, which is what I never even heard of until 6 months ago.
Right.
And so it's just like this never ending something's what else is going to happen today? But you look at your skin, like your skin looks nice and plump and it still has like some, what do you call
Elasticity.
it? Elasticity.
Yeah.
Holy cow, that is not and thinning. Oh my God, I hate the thinning part of it. Like if I
Mm.
hit my hand against something, you probably see it on your mom
Oh, she actually
versus
has it very severe, actually. So I guess so some of the things as she's aged, which that's not necessarily menopause, but she has, and my grandmother had it too, very like crepey skin. So the tiniest thing, it just the
Mhm.
skin like
Yep.
they were
'Cause
she
everything thins out. That's
yeah.
part of it too.
Yeah, she
Oh,
recently had a dislocated shoulder, and just while the doctor was trying to put the arm back into place, her skin tore just by grabbing her skin.
oh,
Like it's
yikes.
super, super thin, but yeah, the tiniest tap and she's got a bruise and stuff like that. But it's interesting because, and this is a TMI, but that's what we love here. So like I've noticed that my breasts at the top, they're not as firm as they
They're
once
not as
were.
perky as they used
And
to
they're not, yeah, like
be.
I feel like the skin at the top, like I'm just like, that's a little softer than and I don't have children, so for me, right, like I know that happens a bit more quickly when you have children, but since I don't, these babies haven't been used for anything else. And so I'm just like, yeah, I'm noticing it and I'm like, oh, it's a very weird
Mhm.
experience. This is like the beginning of me starting to
Yep.
not recognize my body the way that I'm
Yep.
sort of
And
used
I think
to
that's true. I
it.
mean, loss of estrogen, collagen decreases, tissues become weaker and less resilient. So it's
Yeah.
still, that's why,
Yeah.
besides that crepey thing, they're
Yeah.
just so very thin, just like your vagina becomes really thin inside. And
Mhm.
any kind of intercourse that's really rough or like without any lubricant or
Yeah.
low dose estrogen, yeah, all of a sudden, boom, you end up like feeling like you have razor blades or something there.
Yeah. Wow. That's
The other thing too that I was just
intense.
thinking that had been recommended for me was, and especially for women, and I'm not a doctor, but I read about it in the new menopause book by Mary Claire Haver. That's a resource that'll be in the resource page. And then there was also the other woman who I really liked was Mary. What was her name? Let's see, I can't remember her name, but it's in the resources. Back in the day when this started happening to me, how many years ago was that? Let's see, probably 50, like 25 years ago, this started happening to me, all these things.
Hmm.
Is another thing for women who have had breast cancer or have it in history in their family, which I do not have. But
Yeah.
there's another thing they can give you is called Interosa. And Interosa is another insert. And this insert you can get is DHEA. Now, don't ask me how you say that, deoxyhydrone something. It's
Hmm.
quite a technical name. But DHEA, women actually can take that as an oral supplement. You can get it as a supplement over the counter. And what it does is it helps produce estrogen and testosterone. So it actually helps a little bit with your sex drive.
Oh, interesting.
And yeah, which was very really, it's called Interosa. I never even heard of it before these last 6 months. And so I thought it was very interesting to try it out. And I think it works pretty good.
Huh.
So there's so many options, like I said, compared to what was years ago. I mean, let me see if I can find this woman. I wanted to make sure um, here her name is. Christiane Northrup. You've heard of her, The Wisdom of Menopause.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
was like an early, she started early. When I was going through this, that's like 20 years ago, she became very popular.
Oh, interesting.
And I think she was probably, I would be interested to know, but she might have been one of the first people who was really writing a newsletter about it, really
Right,
written a book about it, and really was encouraging women to talk to their doctors
right.
about don't put me on Premarin, or just a antidepressant.
Yeah,
Try some of these other things. And like I
right.
said, it's been in the last 20 years, last 10 years, where things have really, really changed, and there's
Yeah.
so many more resources.
Yeah. Well, when you think about medicine and we look at it from the perspective of like, for so long, medicine was focused on white men as far as it was
Mhm.
tested on and practiced with. And so women, right, of course, all of our internal organs that are unique to us, our reproductive system wasn't really studied as much or in the same way because, we're just women. And even this is something that, when you think about a hysterectomy, now, when we think of the name of it, right, it was because it used to be that when women would have issues with like PMS and things like that, they're hysterical when women had. And so
Right.
a hysterectomy is removing the hysteria
Oh,
from a
wow.
woman. And the fact
Hmm.
that we still to this day call that a hysterectomy
Hmm.
is absurd.
Yeah.
Because that's where that name came from, was removing the hysteria. And
Yeah.
so
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know it's the histo part because
yeah,
ectomy is the
ectomy is the
removal of
removal,
something.
right?
Hmm.
You're
Yeah.
removing the
Hmm.
hysteria,
Hmm.
hysterectomy. And so we still call it that. So, we weren't really starting to even study women, especially when it comes to menopause and all this stuff until, what, the 1970s, 80s,
Hmm.
90s, and like you said, like so much more of this is coming now because more and more women were finally able to get their voices heard within
Right.
medicine themselves and
Right.
start practicing and are able to become researchers. And, we're
Yes.
not that far removed from
Right.
women not being able to practice medicine
Right.
and therefore have a voice.
Right. And I think it's great. I really do. It'd be interesting. I should check this out while we're talking. But that Dr. Christian Northrup, when she was like a pioneer in some ways, and she was the one that said, "Go find a functional medicine doctor. Go find an osteopathic doctor, because they will work with you on alternatives. But traditional, going to your primary care
Mhm.
doctor or your gynecologist." No, they're just going to say put you on a patch, and they're chemicals.
Yeah.
They are too strong, and they aren't working. So
Yeah.
bioidentical, really no bioidentical. Do you know what it's made from?
I think you told me before, it's not yams,
Yeah,
or is that right?
yams and soy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
How they do
So
it, but
interesting.
that's how they make it, and that is more bioidentical to our bodies.
Yeah. Wow. And that's so interesting. And bioidentical, right? So that's just, it has the same qualities. It's like it mimics some of the same. I'm asking, I don't know, but it's specifically the definition of bioidentical.
Oh, I don't quite know what that is, but I know bioidentical means that it's not too strong. It's very similar to what when your body was producing estrogen in the ovaries. It's very similar to that. It's not
Yeah, so it's bioidentical hormones are hormones that are chemically identical to those produced naturally in the human body.
right.
So
Hmm.
they're just the same. And it's interesting, I was also looking while you were talking of the history of medicine. And so the FDA initially recommended excluding women of reproductive potential from early clinical trials in 1977, a policy that lasted until 1993. And so the NIH began recommending the inclusion of women in research in 1986.
Oh my God. See how far,
1986.
right.
Yeah. So when we talk about the last 20 years to start having finally things that work for women, that's why. If it wasn't until 1986 until the NIH was like, "Hey, maybe we should actually start including women in research." Why would we have
Yeah. Hey,
anything
why
before
not?
then? It's pretty crazy. And when we say that, right? I mean, I like when we think about how far away that is. I'm 44. I was born in 1981. So I was 5 years old when they finally were like, oh, yeah, maybe we should have women included in research. That's crazy.
I know that is crazy.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Yeah. So I'm just looking here at the wisdom of menopause. I'm looking at Christian Northrup, why she's called a pioneer,
Hmm.
partially because of she was one of the first people who integrated conventional medicine with holistic mind-body approaches.
Mm,
1994, 2001, she wrote the book Wisdom of Menopause. And so that's what we're talking about. It's been the last 10,
yeah.
20 years.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. So,
Yeah, and great for us. I mean, that's great that, as more women now start moving into it, that probably, if I do have more challenging menopause symptoms, I
mhm.
will probably have, I mean, they'll still suck most likely, but I'll probably have a bit of an easier time than you did when you were first going through it, just because there's been so much in the way of medical advances.
Yes,
And like you've had to do
exactly.
a lot more trial and error, right? Of figuring out before and not even having things named properly,
Right,
right? That you were
right.
going through and identified. So people my age that are going to be starting to go down that path over the next 10 years are potentially hopefully going to have some better experiences
Hmm.
because there'll be names for things and there'll
Hmm.
be some solutions.
Hmm.
And 10 years is a long time in medicine when it
Yes, it
comes
is. Oh
to,
my gosh, isn't that
yeah.
interesting? I was just thinking, so we talked for some women, they're too loose and everything's dropping the bladder or the uterus into the vagina and they have to use mesh, and then there's too tight. And the solution for women who are too loose is they get that mesh installed and through a urogynecologist. And what do you think my solution is? No, you
Well,
can do
you're
that.
too tight. So, well, you have a pelvic floor that goes in and massages you, right?
Yes, so pelvic
Internally.
floor therapy, yep, that is helpful. And also some yoga stretches, and
Mm.
like Happy Baby. I don't know if you
Oh,
know
yeah.
what Happy
Yeah, yeah.
Baby is,
Hmm.
but it's learning it. And actually, if you go to YouTube, that's another resource. I went to YouTube and said, how to for the obturator internus muscle, how do you stretch it? I
Yeah.
just put that in there, and it gave me some YouTube videos about what to do. And it's like Happy Baby. It's like, relaxing and breathing through that and going to a pelvic floor therapist. So it's no quick thing
Right.
besides trying to do the gabapentin
Right.
for the insert, vaginal insert, to try to work with, to numb the pain. But
Right.
that's a slow moving thing that takes some time. So,
Yeah. Do you know just from your experience and research in this, like why women might be one or the other of that?
oh
Like,
gosh.
yeah,
I mean,
just
that's what I was talking to. I was talking to a massage therapist, and I said, "So, why is it that when you get older, you start losing, like elasticity, and your muscles become really tight, And I think some of it is the goddess hormone. The estrogen is gone, and so everything starts to tighten up,
right.
and the flexibility is like leaves you, and because I used to be a dancer, and I could, I can't do
Right.
half the things that I used to do. And so she says, as far as even fluids, drinking lots of water, she goes, but that's not even the cure for it. It
Right.
just it's just part of getting older, the
Yeah.
body. So, and I was thinking, so many women that they don't have they don't have that problem. And like I said, it's been a journey for me because it's been these last 6 months where I kept thinking, oh, I have a UTI. And no, I don't have
Right.
that. Oh, then I have this. Nope, you don't have that. So it's been hard to find. And the most frustrating thing, I think, is that in order to get into, I don't know how it is in Texas there, but to get in to see a specialist like a urogynecologist,
Yeah. Long waits.
3 months.
Yeah.
3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to try to figure out myself for the first 3 months to just try to get rid of the
Yeah.
pains. The pain that I was having is
Yeah.
what do I do? So I tried Azo, which is over the counter now. Back in the day when I used to have bladder infections all the time, you had to go to a doctor to get Peridium, which is what is an
Mhm.
analgesic for the bladder to calm it down.
Right.
And now it's on the count over the counter, but that wasn't even really staying working very well. So
Mm. Yeah.
lots of
Wow.
fun, lots of fun.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard too, I think, when there are these long waits to get in to see specialists, and then you get in, and that's just the first, like, great, tell
That's
me
the
your
verse, right?
symptoms. And
Right,
now you then have to say, okay, cool, now we need tests. So we have to do the test, and then we have to wait to follow up. And then we're
right.
gonna need, oh, well, maybe you need to go to this specialist. And then on top of that, it's hard sometimes also as a woman in medicine to be taken seriously and that, so
Hmm.
then there's gaslighting that can happen sometimes, and the whole thing can be very just defeating, kind
Hmm.
of, I imagine, and especially if you were having a lot of the same thing kind of happen again and again and again without a clear answer as to why that's
Right.
happening. That must be so frustrating.
And when finally it was diagnosed, and I was like, oh, it can't be. That can't be. And you know what I found out where some of it comes for me? Too much sitting.
Mm.
Is seeing clients, yeah, as we get into our
I'm gonna
chair.
stand up. Yeah.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I have a desk that goes up and down, a
Yeah.
standing desk. And so what I have to do is I can sit for about an hour and then I have to get up and walk around, which is
Yeah.
good because that keeps me moving. And I got this special pillow from this company called Purple. And
Yeah.
it's really soft and helps kind of cushion me so I don't like go, my pelvic floor doesn't get pressed on. And
Mm.
so, it's like sitting. That's the doctor's like, so do you sit a lot? And I'm like, yes, I do.
Yeah.
So what about it? Well, that doesn't help what's going on. And
Yeah.
so so then it gets back down to okay, exercising and walking and doing yoga and all that, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's just you can't self-care becomes really important
Yeah.
more than so.
Yeah. I mean, and the more you start seeing things, the more you're like, oh yeah, I better do things. Yeah, I don't have a standing desk, but I have like a counter that I go and stay. I have a whole little setup. I have like a mouse and stuff over there. So I
Yeah,
just go
yeah.
when my computer's charged. I'm like, good, time to go stand
Yeah.
for a while. And then,
Yep,
oh, my computer needs to be charged, back to sitting. And that's kind of
that's
how
right.
that's my reminder to get up.
To
And
get up
like,
and move.
yeah, I toggle myself between the power on my computer pretty much, like
Right.
what
Or
state
if
it's
you have
at.
an Apple Watch or any
Yeah.
kind of
And it
electronic
yells at
watch,
you.
it
Yeah.
says, yeah, it yells at you and
Stands
tells
up.
you to get
Yeah.
up and walk around. So, which is a
Hmm.
good thing. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's been my journey. And, I had, like I said, I had perimenopausal issues. And then it was started out after that. Then I went through menopause and then it was just, okay, we're going to treat some vaginal symptoms. And that worked for a while. And now I've graduated into a whole nother area.
Right. Yeah.
It's never ending. Isn't that
Yeah. I mean,
exciting?
that was going to be my question because, right, it's perimenopause, then it's menopause, which technically is sort of a brief period where you're having like the most symptoms, but then it's postmenopause, and postmenopause is the rest of your life.
Yes.
But clearly, there's no just like it doesn't get easier, right? Like,
No,
I mean, how Mhm.
that's what really pisses me off.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Like when I hear women are like, "Oh yeah, I just went through menopause and nothing happened and I'm fine." I'm like, "Are you kidding?" And I say, "Have you ever had a bladder infection or a UTI?" And they're like, "Oh no, I never had that." I'm like looking at them like, "Wow, what is the story here?"
I've never had one.
Oh my gosh. It's so
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
I hear. I mean, I had no lot. Like I said, my mom gets them a lot, and a friend of mine gets them frequently as well. Like, just I think sometimes it's the way, our bodies are all a little bit different in the way that
Hmm.
they are shaped, and you
Hmm.
just need one with a certain, I don't
Hmm.
know, angle. I'm making that up,
Right.
but that idea of like it's all a little bit different, and each person's pH balance is different, and
Hmm.
so there's so many things that can come into
Yep.
that, and yeah, it sucks though. It just
I
doesn't get
mean,
easier for
you
us.
know,
Why?
I think I don't know some women who have like the problem with the collapse.
Yeah.
That I think some of that may have come from birthing children. I mean, I've heard
Yeah.
that. I don't know. I'm not talking from experience because that didn't
Yeah.
happen to me. But it's just menopause is a tough. And actually, I was just looking at this when Christiane Northrup wrote her books. Her first one was Women's Bodies, Women Wisdom, and
Mm.
encouraging women to trust their bodies and inner wisdom. But when she wrote The Wisdom of Menopause, she was trying to normalize that this is a normal thing for women to go through, and there's wisdom that, now you're not childbearing, you don't have to worry about children now, your life goes on, and what can come out of that.
Mm.
And she wanted to change it from being pathologizing of it, oh, you've got this thing that's happening to you. But she wanted to change it to, there's many things that can come out of it. But, I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for all those things to come out of it. So far, only thing comes out of it is one more thing to look into.
Well, hopefully, Jan, it'll for you get better soon.
One of my friends, my friend Laura, who was on our first
Yeah,
podcast,
yeah.
she was the one who did perimenopause. I
Right.
said to her, I said, Laura, do you think I'm a hypochondriac? That, like all this stuff, I'm making it up and all I do is worry about it. And she goes, no, Jan, I just think you're a very unlucky person. I
It's
said,
true because
I
we
said,
haven't
okay,
even
thank you.
no, we haven't even scratched the surface of the things that you've been through. Like that's one of the things that you and I have talked about is like you'll have for this podcast, you'll have a lot of the physical things. I've got all the mental health things, and like the
We'll
two of
talk
us
about that
together,
now.
yeah, that's
We're
coming. That's
right.
coming.
That's
But
coming.
yeah, that's don't worry, that's coming. But yeah, I mean, you've had so many physical things, not just related to being a woman, but just in
Hmm.
general.
Hmm.
You've had a lot of ailments and
Right,
challenges and things like
right.
that yeah, I mean, Laura
One
might
of
be a little bit right.
Right. The pelvic floor physical therapist did say to me, and this will be another episode at a time, is because I've had both hips replaced. She goes, Jan, when they're replacing those hips and they're putting in all that titanium and they're, like moving muscles around and cutting through things, she said, it could be why some of the muscles that go into the pelvic floor could
Mm,
have been affected. And I was like, holy buckets. I was like, I never thought of that. So
yeah,
anyway, but the pelvic floor therapists, they are working with a lot of scar tissue for women
yeah.
who have scar tissue from any kinds of surgeries, and that's one of their main things that they work with too. So,
Yeah, that's a really great point because, you're fixing one problem, but yeah, you're messing with everything in that area that is all connected. We're all, all of our bits are connected. So that makes sense that, and I wondered too if like leading up to like hip replacements and things like that, your body was overcompensating in other
yes,
muscles and other ways because you were dealing with pain and
yes.
with issues happening there, that there were other muscles tightening to keep you upright in certain
Well, that's
ways
what
or
she
like,
was saying.
yeah,
And I had one hip done, and it was done, and 11 years later I had the other one done,
yeah.
and they made the first hip longer than the other side. So it was a quarter-inch
Oh,
difference, and you might think, oh, it's only a quarter-inch difference, but it does. It changes how your whole hips work. Their
wow.
hips are supposed to be parallel,
Yeah,
and it was tilted. And so there was a lot of compensation, she said, probably going on, and that probably is some of the cause too. And I'm like,
yeah.
oh, great.
I would imagine that would make things more challenging for like your knees and ankles too if there's often that
Yes,
compensation.
that's why I have to get my knee replaced.
Oh.
I mean, it's an endless thing. When you
Yeah.
turn my age, you got to just like sit down and go, okay, what's next?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's
Yeah.
my story, Patty, and I'm going to stick with it.
Okay. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing all of
I
that.
hope I
Yeah.
didn't take over the conversation,
No,
but
I mean this,
yeah, my
well,
God.
I knew coming into this that this would be mostly the light shining on you since I don't have anything to offer there other than to ask questions and, hold space for the
Well, thank you.
insanity that it is to be a
Yes.
woman aging.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Well, I do appreciate it. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting to me too, though. I mean, that's why I love doing this is because I get to learn all sorts of things and good, bad, and otherwise.
Wisdom of your elders.
Yeah, I get to know what I'm in for so I can go curl up in a ball tonight and cry myself to sleep for my future.
No, look, really, I know. So for anyone who's listening out there, remember it's called GSM now. That's the
Oh.
most important thing. And find someone who really understands that term and different ways to treat it. So,
Yeah. And I think in general, when you're looking for doctors of any type, make sure that they're and not just because they're women doesn't mean they're gonna be, great for women, so find people though who are actually going to listen to you. That's the key, I think, when
yes,
looking for service providers of any kind is like if they're not having time to listen and they're on a schedule of like 5 minutes in, 5 minutes out, you want to make sure that your stuff is being taken seriously, especially
exactly.
as you get older and you're not just being, oh, it's just menopause. Oh, it's normal. Oh, it's
It's
that.
just
Well,
menopause. Don't worry about it.
yeah, but there's a lot that happens with that. And so what part of menopause, what issue in it is happening and how can we make it better? Because just because you're in menopause doesn't mean you have to suffer. I
Yeah,
mean, maybe obviously it does a little bit, but like not as bad as you don't have to
exactly.
live with it. Like there are solutions and
Yes.
as you noted, they're getting better.
Yeah, I'm just looking at our resource page, is that you want to make sure, even though they listen to, is that they know that they're willing to work with alternative things. Because I
Yes.
went to a gynecologist and he said, "Oh, you're on bioidentical hormones. You should get them off because your age, and you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be doing that." And I'm like, "Well, then that's when all this started happening."
Yeah.
And so talking about someone who would be willing to work with you. There's another thing here. There's so many new treatments too that it's what Laura Blundo in our first episode was doing,
Yeah.
is that there is the Mona Lisa touch, there's laser, there's all kinds of things. Now those you have to pay out of pocket, and actually the inserts that I'm using for the gabapentin, those I had to pay out of pocket. Insurance doesn't cover those. But there's many things that insurance does
Yeah.
cover. So
Yeah, absolutely. So there's options. So look at
yeah,
your options, do your
look at your
research.
options.
Yeah, ask the questions. And yeah, I like that. Be open to other alternative.
Yes, because the other woman I'm working with who's doing bioidentical for me is a naturopathic doctor.
Mhm.
She's not a functional medicine doctor. She's naturopathic. So
Yeah.
there's all different kinds. You just have to ask questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. Well,
Well,
thank you.
thank you, Jan. Thanks for sharing all of that because, some of it can be sensitive, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you like what you've heard, please share it with friends, subscribe, and leave a review.
And remember, information shared on this podcast is not medical advice. If you have a concern about your physical or mental health, please seek support from a professional.
If you have a story you'd like to share about things your mother forgot to mention, you can apply to be a guest.
We'd also love to hear a quick 90-second thing you've learned in your life.
You can find links to both of those over at our website at
thingsmymotherforgottomention.com or in the show notes.
Thank you.